Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. What you're looking at is the monitor login page. You will be provided with a user ID and a password. So go ahead and enter that information and press login. So this is the first page that you'll be seeing when you log into Monitor. This is called the property search page. Everything around Monitor is based on an asset or a property. So what you want to do is, if you have a property already in the system, you can just search for it. If you don't, then what you do is you go ahead and create one. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and create a property. We click on the create property button. It's going to prompt me for the information about the asset. So let's go ahead and enter all that information in. Now, one thing to note about the system is that we have checks built into the system. So for example, the zip code on this window is set so that you have to enter exactly 5 digits. If you have more or less, it's going to prompt you and say, hey, listen, it needs to be 5. And the reason why we did that is, again, because we know that things happen and we want to try and reduce error as much as possible, so you don't have to worry about making mistakes or typos, as we like to say. Okay, so here we're good to go. The asset number has to be between 1 and 10 digits, and the system's also going to check to make sure that the asset number doesn't already exist. So in case it does exist, the system's going to come back and say, hey, listen buddy, it's already there, you don't need to create it. So most of these fields are self-explanatory. Select investor group, select loan status, key code if one exists, lockbox code if one exists, property type, multi-home unit, select occupancy, and last known occupancy status date. If all the information you entered looks right, you can go ahead and hit the create property button. If not, you can clear all the fields or you can close the window. Okay, so in this case the information is correct. I'm going to go ahead and click the create property button. So it lets me know that the property save was successful. Okay, so now the property is actually in the database, so you can search for it. Now on the left hand side of all the pages you will have the search filters. We designed these searches to be as flexible as possible. So if you wanted to search for properties in Silver Spring, you can go ahead and search for properties by city. If you needed to look at all your delinquent loans, or if you wanted to look at all your properties that were a specific type of properties, you can search for it in any way that you want. So in this case, I know that the asset number that I'm trying to go for is this. So I'm going to go ahead and enter that asset number and click search. So the system has just searched for it, found it in the database, and now you're looking at it on the right hand side. If you notice, there are several buttons up top that are disabled. So they become enabled when you actually select one or multiple properties or assets. So once I did that, it lets me click on any of these. So I'm going to run through these different buttons really quickly. The create report button is, think of it as an print button. If you click create report, what the system does is it takes all the properties that you have selected here and generates an Excel file that contains all this information. So say that you needed to print all the properties that you're looking at right now, it lets you go ahead and do that. So all you do is select the property or multiple properties, you click create report, it prompts you, and it'll open up. Okay, now while that's there, save to queue button. This button I'm going to go into a little bit more in depth later on when I start talking about the queues page. But the queues page, or the queues in the queues page, are very simply favorites lists. Say that you are monitoring all the properties in HUD 01, you can have a queue that just has all the HUD 01 properties in it. So if you were just looking at those, then you can create a queue for it. So say that you wanted to go ahead and save this to a queue, we can go ahead and do that. It's going to ask you for which queue you want to save it to, say monitor 2 or whatever the queue name may be, and you hit save and you're good to go. Okay, now the order services. Again, we tried to design the system to be as user-friendly as possible and as convenient for you guys as possible. So in this case, say that you wanted to get a PAR report for the property that you just created. You go ahead, click Order Services. It's going to open up a window that asks you for the information for the service order you want to place. So in this case, you can say, okay, so I want a PAR report. Go ahead and click PAR. If you have any special instructions, you can go ahead and put it here. If this has to be a rush order, you can click the checkbox. It's going to ask you for the date. In this case, I'm very demanding, so I want it tomorrow. And it's going to ask you for the other information that you can enter. Now, the lockbox code, that is if it's different from what you have saved in the property right now. Okay. Later on, I will show you guys how to edit the property details. So if you actually needed to change the lockbox code, you can actually do that through the property detail page. But for the sake of convenience, we have it here as well. So if you know for a fact that the code is different now, you can just go ahead and enter that here, and the servicer will use that to, the vendor will use that to basically get into the house. Okay. If you're ready, you go ahead and hit place order button. It's that simple. Okay. So those are the major functions of the property search page. Again, very effective, very simple, and it really doesn't take too much time to get used to.